He usually likes to do that. So my name's Colin. I'm going to go over some basic airway management stuff for you guys. I'm going to talk about three main things. One, airway management. Positioning is super important. Then we're going to go over the MPA basic airway stuff. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of all the advanced stuff that we carry to kind of intervene. Airway positioning is the most important part of airway management. Like, it is insanely important. It doesn't matter what level you are. I mean, if it's literally you managing somebody's airway or me when I get to the bedside and I'm like kind of pushing positions out of the way to do it, I always go back to the basics immediately. Something as simple as a head tilt chin lift, where you're taking their head and you're literally lifting it back like this. It changes the world. This is for somebody that doesn't have a suspected cervical injury. If someone gets ejected through the windshield of a car, this probably isn't the best way to manage their airway. You can do what's called a jaw thrust, where you're putting your palms on their cheekbone and you're grabbing the back of their jaw and you're literally lifting it straight up like that. The goal between doing both of these is to displace the anatomy up this way. So you create an inline motion for air to go from the outside down into your lungs. So head tilt chin lift or a jaw thrust where you're lifting straight up. You guys are all cops, right? No. No? Okay. What do you guys? What do you do? What do you guys do?
I'm military.
Okay. So heroin overdoses, right? We see them all the time. One of the first things we see when we walk in the house is they're blue, they're snoring really loud. The reason why they're snoring is because they're occluding their own airway. So when you do something as simple as just lifting their head back, their color's going to change almost immediately, and they're going to stop snoring and start to breathe somewhat normally again. That's like step one before Narcan. Cool. So NPAs. This is NPA, nasal pharyngeal airway. There's a number on. Wow, that feels crossed off already. There's a number on that. It'll be right here. This is a 28. Come in different sizes, all even numbers. The bigger you go, the longer it gets, the thicker the gauge. The smaller you go in number, it's the length gets shorter, and then the gauge gets thinner. 28 is a common size for pretty much every adult that you would use. First step, head tilt chin lift. So you're going to literally pull their head back this way. I take my hand, put it on the back with my thumb. I lift their nose up, and it's a straight shot down into their lungs. Straight down like this.
And it just goes in that easy.
Yeah. I have probably put thousands of these in. I've never used lube. Never. It sounds kind of messed up, but it goes in. Your nose is so moist that it passes pretty simply. The other thing is when you put it in, when somebody wakes up or whatever, and you go to put it out, they're going to be choking and gagging, and it's not fun. The biggest thing with this is if you meet resistance, which, some type of trauma or some type of anatomy issue, if you meet resistance as you're going in, just do a quick quarter turn counterclockwise. Think about it this way. It's always bevel towards the septum. This is the bevel. It's going towards the center of the septum. If you go this way and you meet resistance, you're probably hitting something hard. If you turn it, the bevel is now facing upward, and it's going to allow it to slide down a little easier, right? So straight down, and then if you look at actually where this is going to sit, that's ideal, right? So that if you were to open up your mouth and had this in it, I would be able to see the actual tip of that. That's why people don't gag, right? So this is like the back of your mouth right here, and then the entrance to your lungs is right down there. So, cool? So if you guys want to all give it a shot, I'll flip this around.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
With the chin lift,
Yeah.
Are you able to do that by yourself, and that'll like hold their head back, like if they do have like the spinal trauma or head trauma, or do you
jaw
need
thrust.
somebody? Oh yeah, if you
Jaw
need somebody
thrust.
else.
Yeah, absolutely. Nope. Jaw thrust is cool. You can do it by yourself. Palms both on their face. Grab the back of their mandible and then just lift straight up.
Okay.
You can do it totally by yourself. The other good thing to keep in mind with this is, I don't have a mask for this, but there's a mask on here, right? So you can bag while I'm holding the mask on their face and making a direct seal. Right?
Okay.
So that's a two-person ventilation technique, which is really good. It's pretty effective.
I have a quick question. So I noticed, obviously there's a curvature on this.
Yeah.
You mentioned the quarter turn, but is there is the orientation of it, is that important?
Yeah, bevel towards the septum every single time. Don't worry about the curve that's on this. It's kind of a natural curve primarily because remember, bevel towards the septum. You also want to choose the right ear generally first, When you go home, take your mask off. And
Is
you
it
get,
typically bigger?
oh, yeah, it's typically, in 99% of people, your right nair is bigger than your left. Go home, pick your head up, look down, and you'll see it's probably bigger. So I always choose right first. If you meet resistance, do a turn. If that still doesn't fix it, stop. Go to the other side.
Okay. And it's the same with the like downward, like same motion?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So head tilt chin lift positioning is super, super, super important. Pull that back and go straight down. Yep.
That's pretty smooth.
Yeah. And it'll feel more like that in a normal person.
And that's exactly how it feels?
Yeah.
Almost?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Remember, if you're meeting resistance, you're going to create some form of trauma. Sometimes you'll feel like this crunch and this crackle. You have like this turbulence areas in your nose where if you start meeting resistance, you force your way through it, you're going to break it, it's going to bleed, and now you're going to have a bleeding problem.
Okay.
So we try not to do that.
So, mental, holds back.
Straight. Take your hand straight up, just like that.
Oh,
90-degree, yep. Straight down. Just go ahead and shove that puppy in.
yeah, I think that's pretty easy, yeah.
What other questions?
In terms of like the cage sizes that you were mentioning,
Yeah.
what do you recommend for like?
So 28 is like our go-to size. I can tell you right now by looking at people, pretty much every one of you would be a 28 or a 30. He could probably take a 32. It's just, you know, how we measure it is from the,
So here, like, you're doing it, head tilt chin lift here, and then just go straight, and then you're gonna go. See, do you have any here?
when we talk about measuring, right? Can I see this real quick? We talk about measuring corner of the nose, tip of the mandible right back here, tip of the ear. You're just gonna hold it like that, and that's the right size.
Would you use a different size for adolescents?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's tons of different sizes for these, right? They go down in even numbers or up in even numbers.
Okay.
So yeah, for sure. I mean, I have some that we carry that are this big for neonates.
Okay.
So, what else? Questions about that?
Like, typically, how conscious is the person when you're putting that in?
So this is like a semi-conscious person,
Okay.
right? You wouldn't put in a conscious person because if they're conscious, they
They're
can
breathing.
generally manage their own airway. This would be the semi-conscious person, like they're in and out of consciousness, things like that. The completely unresponsive patient gets these things. These are called OPAs. It's hard plastic. Once he's done that, I'll put it in and I'll show you. This will.
It's the same way?
Yeah.
Is it breathing like?
Oh no, we're not putting this in the nose. It's
Oh,
going
okay.
through the mouth.
Okay.
Yep.
Because that's what makes them vomit, right?
Yeah.
If you're conscious.
Yeah. I mean, if I put it in right now, you're gonna be like,
Oh, yeah,
and then
for
start to
sure.
gag, right? So something wrong. Right. So if that's in, you look on the side. See how like we're already attached. Remember the tip of the NPA? Well, let's put it in real quick. I'll show you. Remember the tip of the NPA?
Oh,
See how much further down that is,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Okay.
This is really where your gag reflex starts. It's like pretty much right where this stops.
Okay.
That's where your gag reflex will start.
So when people are unconscious, they don't like feel that obviously. Like their gag reflex doesn't react to
It's
that.
not tripping.
Okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
Cool. So questions about NPAs and stuff? We talked about quickly about manual ventilations. Everybody's heard CNE. You guys ever heard of that? CNE, I think of it like craps, like you throw in a dice. CNE, right? Create a C with your thumb and your index finger and an E with the last three fingers. The C grabs the mask and pushes it straight down onto the person's face. The E grabs their mandible and lifts it up. Remember, airway positioning is super, super important. You can't bag somebody like this because if the air's not going in the lungs, where's it going to go? Into the stomach, right?
And then they're gonna puke.
And then they get puke everywhere, and then you get pissed off because now you got vomit all over you, and you really were just trying to help somebody. Now you got to smell the rest of the day. 'Cause that smell doesn't come out until you take a shower. So you want to do a head tilt chin lift like this. Make sure you're doing the C, pushing down the mask and lifting back this way, and you're going to just breathe. It's fast breaths like that because you're going to almost propel the air to get into the lungs. Not slow breaths. Slow breaths will basically trip off of where you're trying to get the air and go down the stomach, and you're going to see the stomach rise.
Okay.
Right? When we intubate people, we generally follow it up with what's called an OG tube. This is an OG tube. This goes down into your stomach. This is what we use to kit out really any GI contents, but air as well. So
Do medics on the street use that or no?
they're starting to now. Yeah.
I've never seen that.
You probably wouldn't because it's not a really common thing. On the flight side, we do it a lot. If we anybody that has an advanced airway, an endotracheal tube, gets one of these every single time. This is an endotracheal tube. There's numerous reasons for it that I'd really bore you with if I explained it to you, but we use these a lot.
Would there ever be a reason for you to use both at the same time or not?
Both of these?
Yeah.
Oh, there's no reason why I can't. I mean, it's if they're unconscious and there, and I'm a basic provider where I don't have the skills to be able to put an endotracheal tube. There's nothing. When I was an EMT, I mean, I've done that several times. Yeah.
For squeezing this, is there like a ratio for it? Like I'm assuming you don't blast it.
Yeah. So you're gonna go here. You're gonna give them a full breath. You're gonna let